Afternoon, Year 11, and welcome to the night before news in preparation for Maths Paper 2. Just to make sure you're in the right place, can you make sure you are meant to be looking at the foundation tier? And this is, of course, for the exam taking place on the 4th of June. Okay, so we're going to run through what's likely to come up in this exam, and I've got quite a long list for you. It's easier to predict now what will still come up than it was before Paper 1, but there is still lots on the table. And we're talking about things that will come up in Paper 2 or 3. There's no way of knowing which one they'll come up in. We'll have a better idea again going into Paper 3. But what I will suggest you do is you get a pen and some paper, pause the video now and do that, so that you can just write down the topics from this long list that you know you might need to do some work on. And it's worth pointing out that there will be things on this list that won't come up. There will be some things that aren't on this list that will come up. But this is quite a long list of things that are all very, very likely. So, without further ado, percentages, massive topic that you haven't seen at all in Paper 1, which is very unusual. So we're expecting to see quite a lot of this in Paper 2 and 3. That includes reverse percentages and, really importantly, includes interest. That could be simple interest, it could be compound interest, it could be depreciation, which, remember, is always compound. Use of a calculator, just as a topic in its own right, those two markers that ask you to put in a complicated calculation and write down all of the digits on your calculator display, often followed by a 1-mark rounding question. Combinations, if you don't know what I mean, then the most common context for this is starters and mains at a restaurant and having to list all of the different combinations of order that someone might make. Error intervals. Really high frequency topic that we've not seen yet, so definitely get on and revise that if you're not really confident. Rounding and truncation. And then there's tons of algebra here because there was very little algebra in Paper 1. Laws of indices, expanding and factorising for both single and double brackets, so that includes factorising quadratics. Rearranging formulae and solving equations, very similar skills. And simultaneous equations as well. So lots of possible ways you could be asked to solve. Solving equations in itself is really broad because that could be 1-step, 2-step, x on both sides, a fraction, brackets, all sorts of things, but all very much still on the table. And then inequalities, maybe inequalities from a number line or drawing onto a number line or listing integer solutions or just solving an inequality. And then sequences, another massive topic that we've not seen yet, could have come up in Paper 1 and didn't. Nth term, using the nth term, but also special sequences like Fibonacci. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw that this year. And then coordinate geometry, so moving slightly away from algebra now, but midpoints, for example, or missing coordinates of certain shapes. Pythagoras, huge topic. We have had exam series recently where it hasn't come up. I'd be really surprised if that was the case again this year. And similarly, SOHCAHTOA, right-angled trigonometry, very likely to come up. You didn't even get an exact trig values question in Paper 1, so I'm betting that that is going to be in Paper 2 or Paper 3. And then averages, mean, median, mode and range, really important, really likely to come up, haven't seen it yet. Reverse mean as well is something in particular, if you're looking for a grade 5 that you might want to do some revision on. Those questions can present as being a bit tricky, but actually if you've revised it, they're quite straightforward for the most part. And then frequency tables, still on an averages theme, making sure you can find mean, median, mode and range from a table of data, including grouped data. Estimating mean from a group frequency table is a 3-mark question that is very likely to come up and is very easy to do if you've revised. And then moving on from averages to more statistics, pictograms, scatter graphs, frequency polygons and pie charts are all examples of statistical diagrams that we haven't seen yet. There are a couple more that I'll mention later. Ratio, that's huge. You had a bit of ratio in Paper 1, definitely expecting to still see more. Sharing in a ratio, combining ratio, etc. And then still on proportion, currency conversions. The only proportion question I can remember from Paper 1, it was a while ago now, was the recipes question, and it was really straightforward. So I would expect to see some of the harder proportion topics coming up. So things like currency conversions, best value problems, which can be really simple. They can be quite complex, so be prepared to read those carefully. You could get a buy one, get one free or something like that, that does need a little bit more concentration and a little bit more care with your working out. And then compound measures, again, huge. Speed, distance, time, density, mass, volume, pressure, force, area, all very likely to come up. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw all three of those. Speed, distance, time is known to come up multiple times. Didn't have anything in paper 1, but definitely going to be in paper 2 or 3 at least. Unit conversions are a really important part of that, remember. And then plans and elevations, something that we've not highly recommended for revision in the past, but it's become more and more common, so definitely worth keeping an eye out for that. Should be an easy 2 marks. Area and perimeter, just more broadly, I would include in that area of a trapezium as a particularly important shape to make sure you can find the area of. You can get that in all sorts of higher mark questions. Circles as well, area and circumference. Please make sure you're really confident on each of those formulae. The other part of circles that people skip over quite a lot is just naming parts of circles. Do you know what a chord is or a tangent? Make sure you do. Make sure you can draw them on a circle if you're required to. And then volume is a big topic, as is surface area for 3D shapes. Volume is more common. Both have a decent chance of coming up. You will definitely get some 3D shape work to do, so please be ready for that as well. And then again, big topic, transformations, all on the table because there wasn't any in paper 1. You're likely to get it in paper 2 and paper 3 now, I would suggest, probably covering certainly 2 of the 4 transformations, but possibly 3. And then bearings, less common, but I still wanted to put it on people's radar, particularly for students looking for a grade 5. If it comes up, you're going to want to be able to pick up those marks. Similar shapes, coming back to proportion here really, but it counts as a geometry topic. Something that I wouldn't be surprised to see because you've not had tons of difficult proportion questions yet. And then back to stats. Venn diagrams is one I didn't mention earlier, including set notation for intersect, union and complement, often tied to probability. Frequency trees, also a really important statistics topic that ties to probability, but not the same as probability trees, which we'll talk about in a second. Two-way tables, very similar to frequency trees, again, often has a probability element. Probability trees being 2 different types for conditional and independent events. Oops. Now, in terms of what to do this evening, you've got a couple of choices. You might decide that you want to focus on specific topics. This isn't what I would recommend for most people unless at this stage you've done lots of exam practice and you have a really clear idea of specific things you want to work on. The reason I'd recommend this less is because we still don't really know what's going to come up. There were loads and loads of topics on that list that I shared just before, and you do want to be prepared to do all of it. So single topic revision is going to make that quite difficult to get the coverage on. If you look at exam papers, then you'll cover lots of things, but if you do know that there are certain topics you want to work on, one place you can go is Sparks. Just make sure to go on the independent learning button down here on the taskbar on the left, and then set your filters up correctly, so making sure that the curriculum is set to GCSE. You could also look at ExamQ, examq.co.uk. Again, there are a couple of filters that you need to keep a close eye on. This one, you'll need to make sure it says Foundation for GCSE Maths, and this one, you're actually going to want to put on paper 2 and paper 3. There's no difference between them. If you just put paper 2, it's just going to miss out loads of questions that could still come up. And then this is where you can type in the names of topics that you're looking for. And remember, when you go on those questions, they do come with a mark scheme for each one as well. And then lastly, Maths Genie, probably the website I'd recommend most for looking at specific topics. If you go on GCSE Revision, which you can find in either of these places, then you will find lots of different revision that you can do. Alternatively, if you want to practice papers, which I would highly recommend, you've got Maths Genie again as a really strong option. If you go onto Maths Genie, you can click on GCSE papers, make sure you go on Edexcel, and you can access loads of past papers from there. But there are also predicted papers, And one of the places that you can get these from is mathslinks.co.uk. I mentioned this before paper one. However, for my classes, certainly, I've summarised all of the predicted papers that we've found onto Arbor, so you can get them from there. You should also just have lots of resource that you've picked up in the last 3 weeks now since paper one. There are loads of predicted papers. If you have done all of them, or if you can finish doing all of them tonight, you will be extremely well prepared for the exam tomorrow. Just make sure you bring the papers back in school with you to get help on anything that you're not sure about. Just a quick reminder on Maths Links, this is where you can find the papers. This link here that says Summer 2025 GCSE Maths Predicted Papers. Most of those resources are really good, but not all. So again, I would stick to the ones that we have given you. So, we're nearly there, and I just wanted to remind you quickly of what to do tomorrow to make sure you're as prepared as possible for this exam. So after revising very, very hard this evening and making sure you're as well prepared as you can be, tomorrow morning the hub will be open from 7 o'clock. There will be maths teachers down there that early. Please come in with your papers, with questions that you're not sure about, and ask for help on those. There will be resources down there for you. Like I say, bring the questions that you haven't been able to answer. Make sure you can answer them before you go into the exam. Line up will then be at around 8:25, and there will be revision. It says in maths classrooms, I do apologise, we will be back down in the conservatory, and you will get one of these breakfast waffles. Please, please, please make the most of the opportunity that you have to work through those questions. It's your last chance to make sure that you can do all of the things that are on there. And it is a brand new set of questions updated for things that are specifically likely to come up in this exam. So please make the most of it. Final advice, same as I went through before in preparation for paper one. Make sure you attempt every single question in your exam. It's your only chance to pick up these marks. Once you leave your exam venue, there is no chance to go back to it. So leave it all out there. Do everything you can. Pick up all those easy 1 marks on the tough 5 mark questions. See if that leads you to a second or a third. Make sure you read the questions carefully, especially the last line before you move on to the next question. Keep thinking about sensible answers, particularly now that we're into the calculator exams. The context of questions will be a bit more complex, potentially. You will need to read questions more carefully in the first instance, but that should mean that you can identify sensible answers more easily because they'll be from more real-life problems. Where possible, can you actually check your answers? You have a calculator to help you do that. If you've got to an answer going one way, can you go backwards from the answer to get back to the question? And make sure you use all of your time in the exam doing all of these things. Again, leave it all out there. Don't leave the exam with any regrets. So if you finish with 20 minutes left, I would expect you to use all of that 20 minutes just combing back through everything, checking it again, double checking calculations even on your calculator to make sure you haven't mispressed the button. It's your last chance to secure those marks. So with that, the last thing for me to say is good luck. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Look forward to seeing you when you come out of the exam. Hopefully lots of smiling faces and good news that we've all smashed it. But best of luck with your revision tonight, because that's what's really going to make the difference. And we will see you in the morning.